So the other day, I was at the local FedEx post office in the area, and I had sold a pair of weightlifting shoes on the internet a few days prior, and I was going to ship them out. And I had seen an interaction in front of me that was so ridiculous, but really the epitome as to why men are opting out. Quite frankly, what nothing to do with dating anymore. So the gentleman in front of me was shipping something out, and he seemed to have been just trying to figure out kind of how the whole system works. I mean, it's quite frankly pretty confusing if I'm being honest in terms of measurements, in terms of the label and all that. It takes quite a bit of time. Anyone who's been to a post office, I think, understands that. But this woman who was working behind the counter was being very rude to him, was being very dismissive, was not trying to help him. And after he had left, she made some remark to her female coworker after he left the door, and they were laughing about the guy, and it was my turn in line. Now, when she was quote unquote helping me, really wasn't doing much at all. She was pulling out her phone kind of mid conversation between when I was getting the package set up to ship out. And I'm thinking to myself, this woman acting dismissive, acting like that in the first place, as if she is rejecting these guys that go in there like they're there for her. They're not there for her. I'm going to tell you right now. As for the guy leaving and myself included, if I saw this woman in public, I wouldn't even give a double take. I am there to ship out something that I had sold on the internet. And if you're going to be rude and dismissive and pulling out your phone in a way, trying to act like she is rejecting these guys there when they're not there for her, it is absolutely ridiculous. So I had said something to her about the way that she treated that guy leaving, about having respect. And now what was so interesting about that is she didn't say anything in return. The tune actually changed pretty quick. I was actually expecting somewhat of an argument. But I was thinking this to myself. Now, I think stuff like that, there are times where it needs to be called out, obviously. And there are certain ways to do it where you keep your composure. But rather than even having to put yourself in a position where you have to call things like that out, the best way to deal with that would be to not even have to deal with them in the first place, would be maintaining your peace and avoiding the drama altogether. And stuff like this is exactly why men are done with modern women. Now, where I want to go with this is for anyone who's dealt with that kind of stuff, whether it's a feeling of, I don't even want to call it rejection. I talked about this in a previous video. Ridicule, humiliation, being gossiped about, being mocked. Don't let anyone make you feel like you are insignificant. And by the way, by significant, I don't mean some celebrity that has praised by all these people they don't know. That's not what I mean by significant. I mean your contribution to your family, to the people around you. That's what I mean by significant. I have known countless good, decent men throughout my life. They're not 6'5". They're not making $500,000 a year. They're not driving exotic vehicles. They are good, decent men. I look beyond the superficial stuff. And I'm someone who also thinks that if you want to treat yourself, there's nothing wrong with it. And this is where a lot of men have woken up. They are doing things for themselves. They're not doing it for other people. They're not doing it for women. They want to get a nice watch. They are doing it for themselves. They want to get a nice car. They are doing it for themselves. Of course, spend within your own means. And that also goes into doing things not for other people, because I'm sure we've all seen this where there's people who will have maybe the latest phone or a car they're taking a lease on and they can't really afford it. That phase has ended. I think that's something that is quite frankly gone nowadays. And one of the best things obviously a man can do is stop caring what other people think, but certainly women, because their standards have become very, very unrealistic. Now, where I want to go with this is something I was thinking about recently. I've seen a lot of talk of AI. I've even talked about AI companions and stuff like that. But I was at a car dealership with a buddy of mine recently. And in the middle of this sales floor, there was a robot that was about 5 to 6 feet tall. And it resembled a person. Now, This robot was not yet on the market, but it was soon going to be. I believe they said it was going to be $30,000 to $50,000, and it essentially would do your chores and stuff like that around the house, without any drama, without any questions asked, without any strings attached. And I had also seen a video pop up, a few videos about this actually recently, about these kind of AI robot dolls in some parts of the world that are going to be soon on the market. And it's wild to think that this is even a conversation that's being had because, I mean, we all know times change, right? There was a point when we were a lot younger. We were walking through the aisle at a video game store, perhaps, in the 90s or early 2000s. Times have certainly changed. If you guys remember Sears and Toys R Us and Blockbuster and Hollywood Video. But to even see that this is something that is being talked about, and this is regardless of how you feel about the ethics, these things exist because men want peace. That is why they exist. It's either that or the ridiculous, unrealistic standards nowadays when it comes to dating. That is why those things exist. And that is regardless of how you feel about the ethics behind it, right? And many men are not interested in dating. And they're not even interested in being around women anymore. They're just not. And I still see claims that there is somehow some male loneliness epidemic. I see it mostly from modern women, perhaps even exclusively from modern women. This claim that there is a male loneliness epidemic when they hear about stuff like that, but just in general, when they see men opting out, when they see men not approaching women. Now, what I find so interesting about that is the reason that men have opted out of dating and relationships is because of the behavior of modern women. So they've pushed them away and now they want to have them come back. That's what they want. I'm seeing videos nonstop of women who are a lot older, who are in their cars talking about how they want a relationship. They want a guy who's not wasting their time. They're saying that when they're 50 years old now, when we already know what they were probably doing during their whole 20s and even 30s. But even when it comes to this claim of a loneliness epidemic, I'll put it this way. Just about every single guy I know who's single, they're productive with their time. They're doing very well financially. They're in the gym. They are working on themselves. They're not having to deal with drama. Whereas the people I know who are in relationships, and this is the point I want to make with the loneliness thing. The people I know who have dealt with the most loneliness are the ones that have been in relationships. They have felt the most lonely while they are in the relationship because they lose their identity in many ways. They lose their self-respect. They stop focusing on hobbies and even work in some cases, stop spending time with friends and family who they've known for years, even decades. That's what I see as really the exclusive cases of loneliness that I've seen among men, quite frankly. I'm not saying the others don't exist, but this notion that there is some widespread male loneliness epidemic because men are choosing to opt out is absolutely false. It's absolutely false. And really, men are done being put down. They're done being disrespected. And I see this too because they'll try to act like something is wrong with men for that, when they shouldn't be surprised. All the real thing they should be asking is, why are they even surprised? For years, this has been going on. And if someone is dealing with this for years on end, naturally they're going to want to withdraw from it. They're not going to want to take part in it. They're not going to want to play the game anymore. So, additionally, they hear horror stories about false allegations, about divorce, about custody battles. I'll put it this way, and this goes to show really who is serious in this conversation, because most men that I talk to, they're not afraid of marriage. They're afraid of divorce. They are not opposed to the idea of having a family or having kids. They are opposed to divorce and losing half their stuff and having their time wasted. It's not going to lead to marriage or having kids in the first place when there really isn't anyone worth taking seriously. It's not going to lead to that in the first place. Like, the way I see it too, with the claims of men going their own way and this and that, is they'll want to make it seem like that is a bad thing. When I see women who are single, They'll do the monkey branching stuff first of all while they're even in the relationship because they don't want to be single in the first place. Or they will do things while they are single exclusively to get male attention. Wearing certain things outside of the house, putting on a bunch of makeup, posting certain things on social media, doing things for male attention. So you tell me who is really handling singleness in the way they should, where there's a really, really loneliness epidemic. Because I don't see one among men. I think that's a complete made up thing. I think it's a fabrication. I don't at all buy that. I never have. And it's something you constantly hear when it's non-existent. Because the reality is most men are now taking up things like the gym, which I've even seen the gym kind of be ruined to some extent by the behavior of some modern women. And whether that means you need to get a home gym, whether that means you need to go to a more niche gym that's more focused. I'm sure we all have to come to some kind of solution with that. I myself work out at more of a martial arts oriented gym. They have a rack, a gym, kind of weight set and everything I need. I don't need a bunch of equipment. And that works just fine. Prior to that, I did have a home gym. Again, it wasn't the fanciest thing in the world. I didn't have new machines and state-of-the-art equipment, but it got the job done. Nonetheless, men are working on improving themselves. That's what they're doing. And I'm not going to knock someone for doing that. If anything, I'm going to be all for it. I'm going to be all for someone actively improving their life while avoiding the drama in the process. And even with the time we have, because time goes fast, we all know that. That's not to be negative. That's just to say appreciate and cherish the things that you have right now, the things that are in front of you. Like that time that you'd be wasting on a dating app. Go watch a sports game with your father if they're still in your life, whether that's a sports game in person or on the TV. Anything other than wasting it on modern dating antics. I'll put it that way. And before I end this video, I want to talk a little bit more on the thing I had mentioned earlier with the robotic stuff. Because, like I've said, a number of years ago, I would be surprised to even be having this conversation. But I had taken a class many years ago on construction materials and learned about how important a foundation is, whether it's the foundation of a house or a foundation in anything, to have a form of a baseline, right? And I remember a few buildings down from me, from where I was taking this class at, there was a class on robotics, which I didn't take myself. But seeing how quickly things are advancing, it's only a matter of time before those hit the market. I had seen a movie recently, and I don't want to say the name of the movie because it would kind of spoil it. But one of the main characters is interacting with an AI kind of robot doll, female. And you could tell that he is someone who worked on himself, worked on his mission and his purpose, and wasn't at all opposed to the idea of dating. And this is regardless of how you feel about the ethics. But I'm thinking to myself, it would have been almost like a trade-off where he doesn't get very good and skilled and talented at those things. And maybe isn't in a relationship, because I'll be upfront in saying this. I see modern dating as a distraction. The fact you have to go through all these hoops and hurdles in the first place is a distraction. If there was respect for the man's time, there wouldn't be all this. All these things with testing the guy and this kind of stuff. A woman should be there to support a family down the line, ideally. But I don't see any of that. I truly do not see any of that. I see constant disrespect. I see constant, really just no understanding of boundaries. And that's, take that how you will. I've had times where women will reach out and then in the past, and then before you know it, they're trauma dumping about their exes and their father, which that to me is already a major deal breaker, red flag, if they have that kind of really disrespect towards their biological father for no reason. Because, at least in the area I'm in, most women grew up in well off kind of circumstances. They grew up in $1-2 million homes. They grew up at the age of 17, 18 having a new car bought for them. There's no reason that they should feel that way. But that's what's happened with the entitlement. It's gotten so out of control. Of course, I'm not saying that every single father is perfect. No parent is perfect. No, none of them. And it's not easy being a parent. I'm not a parent myself, but I would imagine it is not easy being a parent. But I wouldn't want to sit here, first of all, barely even knowing the person, and then you're coming to me and disrespecting your father. How do you think that makes you look? You don't understand the idea of parenthood, of a father, of a mother. So how are you going to be capable of being a parent in the first place? It's not going to happen. So, as always, guys, I appreciate you for viewing the video. Just this incident, if you want to call it that, at the FedEx really just show me exactly why these conversations are being had in the first place. So, as always, guys, I appreciate it. Again, thank you for viewing. Have a good one.